Mayotte, the abandoned island under French rule. The Department of Mayotte is the name given to the overseas department and region of France known as Mayotte. And before we get into details, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated. It is situated between northwestern Madagascar and northeastern Mozambique in the northern Mozambique Channel in the Indian Ocean, off the coast of Southeast Africa. Grande Terre, also known as Mayotte, is the largest island in Mayotte. Petite Terre, also known as Pamanzi, is a smaller island that surrounds the two main islands. The Mozambique Channel's most rich territory, Mayotte, serves as a significant entry point for illegal immigrants. Mayotte shares the same status as the departments of metropolitan France as one of France's 18 regions and one of its offshore departments. It is the most remote area of the European Union, and as a department of France located abroad, it is a member of the Eurozone. According to the 2007 census, 63% of people aged 14 and over said they could speak French, which is also spoken as a second language by an increasing percentage of the population. The most widely used of Mayotte's native tongues is Shinmori. The island was first settled by people from nearby East Africa, and later by Arabs who brought Islam. In 1500, a sultanate was founded. Muslim people make up the vast bulk of the population nowadays. The former monarch of the Madagascar Kingdom of Aboina, Andrianseli, invaded Mayotte in the 19th century. Following the 1974 referendum, Comoros declared its independence, and Mayotte parted ways with them to join France. Following a vote in March 2009 that saw a resounding majority in favor of the department's status, Mayotte was granted the status of an overseas department on March 31, 2011, and it was given the designation of an outermost area of the European Union on January 1, 2014. The department is faced with formidable obstacles. In contrast to 16% in metropolitan France, 84% of the population lives below the poverty line, which is set at €959 per month in household income. 40% of homes are made of corrugated sheet metal shacks, 29% of households lack running water, and 34% of people between the ages of 15 and 64 are unemployed. With a population growth rate of 3.8% in 2019, half of the population was under the age of 17. In addition, 48% of the population is foreign-born as a result of extensive illegal immigration from nearby islands. History. The island's inhabitants, who were likely descendants of earlier people who spoke Bantu, Malay, and Indonesian languages, were conquered by Arabs in the 15th century and converted to Islam. The Portuguese and French visited Mayotte in the 16th century. The Sakalava, a Malagasy tribe from Madagascar, invaded and settled on the island around the end of the 18th century, bringing with them a Malagasy dialect. Mayotte came under French colonial rule in 1843, and in the early 20th century, Mayotte, along with the other Comoros Islands and Madagascar, formed a unified French overseas entity. Beginning in 1975, when the three northernmost and predominantly Muslim islands of Comoros won independence and the Muslim and Christian population of Mayotte decided to stay with France, the French managed Mayotte separately from the rest of Comoros. The island was given the special status of Collectivité Territoriale by the French government in 1976. A United Nations resolution confirming Comoros' sovereignty over Mayotte was adopted in 1979. Additionally, the African Union agreed with Comoros' claim to the island. The Mayotte inhabitants have long called for the island to be given the status of an overseas department, but it wasn't until the early 21st century that the French government made concrete measures to carry out the move. 95% of Mayotte's voters approved the change in status in a referendum held on the subject in March 2009. It became effective in March 2011. Environment. Mostly volcanic in origin, Mayotte rises abruptly from the ocean's surface to a height of 660 meters on Mont Benara. In the south, volcanic activity began around 7.7 million years ago and ended about 2.7 million years ago. Activity in the north began 4.7 million years ago and continued until 1.4 million years ago. There were various stages of activity at each center. Ash bands have been dated as recently as 7,000 years ago, BP. Marine environment. There is a typical tropical coral reef all around Mayotte. It comprises a sizable outer barrier reef that surrounds one of the biggest and deepest lagoons in the world, followed by a fringing reef that is broken up by numerous mangroves. A national marine park governs all of Mayotte's waterways, and numerous locations are protected natural areas. The National Natural Heritage Inventory, INPN, lists 3,616 marine species, 760 tropical fish species, and at least 250 different species of coral, but the true number of marine species is likely far higher. The waters around the African nation of Mayotte continue to be home to several species that are still poorly known to science and provide opportunities for significant scientific discoveries every year. Terrestrial environment. More than 1,300 species have been reported, with half of them being indigenous, making Mayotte one of the world's richest islands in terms of plant richness relative to its size. Although just 5% of the island's original primary forest remains today owing to unlawful deforestation, 15% of the island is designated as a nature reserve. Mayotte, like many volcanic islands, has a relatively low diversity of mammals. The sole endemic species is the flying fox. There are, however, 116 butterflies, 38 dragonflies, 50 grasshoppers, and 150 beetle species, in addition to 18 species of reptiles and 23 species of terrestrial mollusks. The people. The majority of the population are Mahorais of Malagasy descent who practice Sunni Islam and are heavily affected by French culture. There is a small minority of Roman Catholics. The majority of the population speaks Comorian, a language closely related to Swahili, although French is the official language. Some villages along the Mayotte coast also speak a Malagasy dialect as their primary language. Rural areas are home to a slight majority of the population, while urban areas are home to slightly less than half. The communes of Mamoudzou, Kaungu, and Dzanzi are where most people live. The population is young, with more than 2/5 of people under the age of 15 and just around 1/8 of those over the age of 45. Economy. At current market exchange rates, Mayotte's GDP in 2019 was $2.98 billion. Mayotte's GDP per capita in that same year was $10,850 at market exchange rates rather than purchasing power parity, PPP, which was 8 times greater than the GDP per capita of Comoros that year, but only 42.8% of Réunion's GDP per capita and 26.4% of metropolitan France's GDP per capita. As a result, living conditions are worse than in metropolitan France. According to the 2017 census, 10% of homes in Mayotte lacked electricity, 29% of homes lacked indoor plumbing, and 54% of homes lacked indoor toilets. Due to financial assistance from the French central government, the gradual transformation of the territory into a fully fledged French department following a 2009 referendum, and significant improvements to public services and infrastructure, Mayotte's economy has expanded significantly since the turn of the 20th century. Mayotte has started to catch up to the rest of France in terms of living standards, thanks to its brisk economic expansion. Mayotte's GDP per capita increased despite rapid population growth from 15.4% of metropolitan France in 2000 to 27.3% in 2017. However, this catch-up process has slowed since 2018 as a result of the civil disturbance that occurred in Mayotte that year and its negative economic effects. Mayotte's GDP per capita increased from 28.7% of Réunion's level in 2000 to 43.7% in 2017, then began to decline. Insecurity poses a danger to local agriculture, which is unable to compete in the export market with Madagascar or the Comoros Union due to a more expensive labor force. Despite the delinquency rates, the island's main economic potential still lies in tourism. Culture. 5 times as many women as males, or around 26% of the adult population, describe going into trances when they feel possessed by identifying spirits, jinns, that retain stable and coherent identities from one possession to the next. Tourism. There are fewer sandy beaches on the island of Mayotte than on its neighbors Grande Comore, Mohali, Seychelles, Mauritius, and Madagascar, but it has a much greater variety of coastlines and sand hues: black, brown, gray, red, beige, white. Its lagoon is the biggest and deepest in this region of the world, as well as one of the biggest on the planet, and its double barrier reef is a biological curiosity with only a dozen occurrences on our planet, hosting a great diversity of animals, including large cetaceans, which are extremely rare. Aside from the numerous scuba diving clubs, other organizations, including Les Naturalistes de Mayotte, provide guided activities, hikes, visits, bivouacs, and several marine operators accompany tourists as they explore the lagoon and, in particular, its marine mammals. The official organization in charge of overseeing all aspects of tourism for the Mayotte territory is the Departmental Committee of Tourism. It serves as the primary administrative body in charge of directing the growth and improvement of Mayotte's tourism industry. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Subscribe so you don't miss out on great content.